What's up, guys? Get some people on. Usually takes a second or two, maybe a minute. Let's see. Boom. Check. Okay. Give this a second. Get some guys on. If you're joining in, say what's up. Hope everybody's doing well. Jump in the chat there. Answer some questions. There we go. Now we got people. Degeneration Boomer. What's up, buddy? So we got people now. So I told you guys I went live last weekend, and I told you guys that I would be going live mobile once a week. So it's the weekend. Had some snow come in last night, and it's just a mess today. Just running some errands and getting a few things done with some emails and all that good stuff. But this past week has been major on the YouTube channel for clover. Everybody's thinking clover because basically it's frost seeding season, and it's a good time to start frost seeding here. I'd say from now until the next 2 months, basically, depending what state you're in. So it's a good time to start. So if you guys have any questions about that while we're live, clover or any other questions that you might have, be sure to fire them away. And also, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe if that's the type of thing that you're into. Getting ready to start work on my plot in North Georgia. Very nice. What's the temperature down there right now in North Georgia? Today it's like 34 here. Let me see if I can flip this. So yeah, we got some snow up in here a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. So hopefully this is the last snow and we can move forward with some warm spring temperatures, because that's what I'm looking forward to. So with these questions, with clover that I've been getting, and I'll pop in the chat as well and answer your questions as we go. But number one is always herbicide use. What's the best herbicide to use on clover? And I found out about 4 to 5 years ago that a herbicide called Imox, and people get freaky with herbicides, and I don't like using them either, but sometimes they're needed when you plant clover, or any food plot for that matter. When you plant clover and chicory food plots, you will probably at some point have to use herbicide, and that herbicide is Imox. It controls the broadleaf weeds and grasses, all built into one. You don't need separate clethodim or for your grasses or 2,4-DB. You don't need that. Just buy Imox, 7 to 9 ounces per acre, mixed in your sprayer tank, and you can control all your grasses and weeds in that clover chicory food plot. Want to harm the chicory, will not harm the clover. It's all built into one, and it works extremely well. That's what I've been using. You spray it, maybe 12, 14 days later, give it a mow your clover, and you'll have a beautiful clover plot. Today, 50, but it's been in the 60s. Very nice. Same here in Birchwood, Tennessee. Very nice. Send those warmer temperatures out in the east here in Maryland. All right, so that's the herbicide. It's called Imox. You can get it online. I don't know of any stores around here locally that sell it, but I can buy it online, and I think it's about $75, I believe, which for $75, controlling your grasses and weeds all together is a lot cheaper option than buying clethodim and 2,4-DB. That way you're not buying two chemicals. It's easier to obtain and all that good stuff. JJ, deer hit clover hard last few days. It got cold with snow. Yeah, sometimes when you get snow and stuff, they'll dig down to it, to the clover. Now, a lot of times, like where I'm at in Maryland and Pennsylvania, the deer stop hitting clover roughly around November like 15th. It's just that's the way it goes. They really don't hit it after that. Now, if you get like really really cold, desperate times in January, February, maybe December if it warms up a little bit, but they will dig down through that snow to hit the clover. They know what they need, so as long as they know it's there, they have use of it, whether it's technically dormant or not. But they know what they need, so they go where they have to obtain food and shelter and energy and all that good stuff. So they live out there, so they know what to do. Another misconception that comes up with clover is that clover produces nitrogen, and that's true. Clover does produce nitrogen, um, but it doesn't happen from a bare seed. Think about that. So you're broadcasting your clover seed out, and it just doesn't magically produce nitrogen. That clover has to establish, and once it establishes and creates nodules, you can look this up. Once it creates nodules on the root system, and that clover is stimulated by browse pressure, um, mowing, or so forth, um, then it can release the nitrogen. But it takes time. It takes months for that nodules to build up. So you can't just produce nitrogen from a bare seed. Same with like clover. It takes time to uh, build those nodules up, and it could take 2 months, 3 months, I don't know, but um, it takes a lot of time. So adding a little bit of nitrogen at planting with clover is okay. People freak out about that because nitrogen promotes weeds. Well, it's true; it feeds weeds, but adding a little bit at planting, like a little bit of a starter fertilizer, it's not a bad thing. And you're going to have weeds regardless, so you can control them later on. Roger, in your experience, does IMOX work better than clethodim? Um, I'll be honest, I haven't. I've never used clethodim. I've used 2,4-DB to control broadleafs, um, because one clover plot I had a really bad broadleaf weed problem. So I used 2,4-DB, and it worked well. I've never used clethodim because typically I would just mow, and it would control. But in certain situations, I use IMOX, and I recommend that a lot because that's what I'm used to. But I know people that use the clethodim, and it does work. So it's really it's just an option. So like if you just have grasses, then use clethodim, you know. But if you have a mixture of grasses and weeds, use IMOX. That's just my opinion. Why buy? My point is why buy two separate chemicals? I guess when you could just use one chemical, which is IMOX. I get it works out cheaper in the end. So why use two when you can use one? Josh, hey from work. Josh, you're always working on Saturdays. Will IMOX hurt chicory? No, it's safe for clover and chicory. You're good to go. I have I have a plot that is basically in a valley. Only have 10 acres to hunt on, but 40 acres surrounding. It doesn't get hunted on. How would you plant the half-acre valley? Um, it really depends. I probably, I guess, depending what state you're in. I can't remember if you said what state you're in. Georgia. Um, so down there, as long as that valley doesn't get like wet, then you could. What really works in Georgia would be oats. Oats would work very well down in Georgia. Um, Clover would do well as well in the fall. Uh, I would go with oats, to be honest with you. Domain makes a product called No BS, which has oats in it. So that I'm thinking that would work, or you could just buy just regular buck forage oats. That would work well in Georgia. The reason I say that is because buck forage oats tend to be a little bit, cold hardy. So down there in Georgia, you're not going to get those extreme temperatures. So I'm thinking that's what I would do. David Phillips, will IMOX hurt collards? Uh, that I don't know. Not sure about that. You can look IMOX up and read the label on it, and it'll tell you what it's safe for. I personally just use it for clover, chicory, and alfalfa. Um, that's what I use it for. So if you Google it, I, I, there's a website, I can't remember the name of it, but it'll tell you everything on there that it's safe for, and it's actually a replacement for other separate herbicides. So it's really cool. Just look it up. Josh, over time, got to buy those fertilizer and lime and seed. Yeah, definitely. City Sticker Chris, brah, scheduled the podcast for tomorrow and just got my soil samples back. Needs nothing. There you go. So that's what we teach on the podcast and all that good stuff. So pay attention to the YouTube channels. And, Chris, like Chris just said, he just got his soil samples back and he's nothing. That's the goal, is that you need nothing. So you build up the soil enough to where it can hold your nutrients and all that stuff. So therefore, later in that food plot's life, you don't need nothing, and then therefore you end up saving money um, in the end. So I always talk about your soil is your bank account. You're building up your bank account. So therefore, later on in life, in the food plot's life, it can reward you by not having to spend money, basically. And that's what Chris did, is build up the soil, and he built up his bank account. So now it's rewarding him by holding the nutrients, feeding the deer, and not pulling any money out of his pocket for lime and fertilizer. So, Paul, what is the best fertilizer for Egyptian wheat? I love it. I love planting Egyptian wheat. Um, your best bet for that is going to be triple 19. Reason being, you got that potassium and you got the nitrogen. So with Egyptian wheat, you have to think of it as corn. Corn loves nitrogen, makes it green and makes it grow. But the potassium in there as well builds the strong stalks, so it can hold up later into the season if you get high winds or um, snowfall. But the potassium is what really, really holds the or makes strong stalks. And there's a huge um, misunderstanding with Egyptian wheat, is everybody just continues to add nitrogen, more nitrogen, more nitrogen, more nitrogen, because they try to grow it as tall as they possibly can. Well, if you add too much too much nitrogen without potassium, what happens is it grows very tall, but then the stalks can't hold it. So think of, what would you rather have, a 20-foot tall? It doesn't grow 20-foot tall. I'm just saying, would you have 20 feet tall Egyptian wheat with skinny stalks and then it just plops over? Or would you rather have 10-foot tall Egyptian wheat with bamboo type stalks and it holds up strong? That's the difference between adding too much nitrogen and not enough potassium. So I always throw in the triple 19, and I usually second dose it. So I'll put triple 19 down at planting. I'll come back in 30 days later and just top dress it with triple 19 as well. Usually 75 pounds or 100 pounds per acre. Um, you have to do the math on how much you really need. But if you're just planting strips, it's obviously not going to be that much. But you can just walk over it or walk beside it, kind of hold your spreader that way. As you walk, just broadcast it in, going up one side, make a U-turn, come back, and broadcast it into the screen coming the other way. And that has worked very well for me over the years. Built up my bank account. Now buy you a cookie. I need. Hold on. Do I got cookies in here? What do I got in here? I got nothing today. Okay, thanks. I usually use Domain. Last year I used Hot Chick and Comeback Kid, but had a very dry fall and winter. Didn't do as good last year. Yeah, a lot of people struggled with that last year, um, with the drought. Fortunately, I was in a situation too when it was drought, and like the last minute, I got a bunch of rain, and my plots came through and ended up turning out really well. But I know a lot of guys in different states that struggled with drought. So um, there's things out there too that can help with drought. Some different product, soil type conditioners and things that can help with drought. It just really depends on how far you kind of want to, take your management practices. Do you want to take it to the extreme, or you just kind of do it, a little bit? Um, I take it. I tend to take it to the extreme, so I always try to experiment and test different things and kind of see what I can get out of something. And I always want to know what can I get out of the soil? How much can I put into it to where it rewards me later on? And that's what I try to do, with like soil samples each year, lime, fertilizer, granular versus liquid, um, soil conditioners, all that good stuff. So it just depends on how far you want to take it, really. Fun stuff, though. It's all about experimentation, trying just because you try something and you don't really have a good result doesn't really mean it failed. There's a lot of factors into it, but it's all about a learning situation. July 4th till October 22nd with no rain here, which is in Georgia. Only thing keeping it from turning to dust was my sprinkler. Yeah, it was tough. Tough times last year. It was dry. I know when I got back into fishing last year and canoeing, and I went. I think I went canoeing twice in October because the water levels were pretty good where I go. It dried up. I couldn't go June, July, August, September. I mean, it was dry. Um, I mean, the water level was so low, you would just hit rocks, and I'm in Maryland, so it got really dry last year. Going to plant some Durana clover here in Texas Panhandle. Any good tips? Still kind of dry here. Yeah, wait till you get moisture. If you plant it in the spring, just be aware that you're going to have to deal with weeds, and we just talked about using IMOX to control that and mowing as well. I mean, obviously, my first choice would be mowing because I don't want to use chemicals, but um, sometimes chemicals are needed. So, you can use the IMOX in there, but just pay attention to soil samples. If you plant in the spring, you're going to have some weed concerns, so you may have to have a chemical application and mowing. David Phillips got my pH to 7.1. 3 years of hard work. They sold my hunting land, lost my lease, never going to lease again. Yeah, I mean, I get that. That happened to me actually, recently. But I mean, I'll still lease for now, but eventually I'll end up buying a piece, and it's obviously you don't want to put too much money into a lease property, but if you're planning on leasing it for several years, then I think it's worth it. It really just, I guess, all depends on what you can afford, but it sucks. You know, you build up the soil and you have a whole plan set up, and that type of thing happens when it's not yours and you're just leasing. Chad, I have very sandy soil, central Minnesota, you know, full of sandburrs. Would you recommend anything to plant? Corn, beans, keep s- so I can keep spraying gly. I'm assuming you're asking. Uh, I would say it depends how big the plot is. You can plant soybeans in that. You can plant buckwheat. Um, I mean, if you're asking if what you can plant and still spray gly, you can plant Roundup Ready beans. There's a lot of varieties out there um, that you can plant and still spray glyphosate over them to control the weeds and grasses and stuff. David, that's where last day you load up a few ag loads of salt to spread. City sticker. Josh, are you still using the city sticker knife? He threw that thing out. That's what he told me. Spreading rumors. I have sandy soil, northern Michigan. I have sandy soil, northern Michigan. I have had good luck with sorghum. Turkeys love it too. Yeah, sorghum can work well. Um, have those deep root systems in there and all that, so that works well. Buckwheat can work well in sandy soil because buckwheat tends to hold moisture. Um, if you ever planted it and you kind of snap a stalk in half, it just kind of squirts out moisture. So that works in sandy soil as well. Slap you both. Heck yeah, I use it all the time when I'm not showing it off. Why is your English so good? I don't know. I was born that way. I just speak good English. City sticker. Boom. Any idea how to get rid of sandburrs? They keep coming back every year. I don't. I've never had to honestly deal with them. City sticker. Why is my English so good? Been using plot start for my lime last 2 years. This year I plan to spread regular lime. Bless. Um, Plan to spread regular lime. Have a place that rents a spreader buggy for $75 and $50 a ton of on lime. Yeah, definitely. Uh, don't waste money on liquid lime and plot start and all that stuff. Uh, spread actual lime. You'll get way more bang for your buck spreading actual physical lime. I have a lot of videos about that. My opinions on liquid lime. Um, it can be good if you're using the right lime, um, but it's a very short term situation. So you're better off uh, using actual lime because like I just said, and we just talked about Chris, where he had his soul sample and he needs nothing now, and that's 3 years of working on it. But he added lime. He got a lime truck in there. He's added fertilizer. He's added green manure. He's done everything to build it up, and now his soil is rewarding him. You'll never have your soil reward you using liquid lime. Put it that way. Roger, second that real lime for the win. Absolutely. Mark C, will deer eat buckwheat or just use it for a soil builder? So that's a interesting topic because I started planting buckwheat 7 years ago, I guess. And the first year I planted it, the deer ate it, tore it up because it was in an area that didn't have that, right? So anything new they will experiment with or whatever. And there wasn't really any other food around. So yes, they did eat it. As years went on, I built the property up, worked on the habitat in general, and I planted buckwheat and they didn't eat it. Um, so I would say yes, they do eat it when it's young and tender. When it gets mature, they don't, for the most part. Um, so it really depends how the habitat is around you and all that. So I get 50-50 answers on it. Yes, they do eat it, or they ate it on my property, and no, they didn't eat it on my property. So it's a yes and no. Yes, they can eat it. No, they might not. But it's great for soil building. Very good for soil building. A lot of times, um, really depending what state you're in, you can get 3 plantings of buckwheat in between the spring and summer. Um, I try to do sometimes if I really need to work on the soil, I'll use buckwheat and I'll let it go for like 30 days and then till it back in, or I'll use overhaul from Domain. That's a really, really good soil builder. You can plant that and that'll grow up and build the soil up as well. Yeah, so Roger has a good point. They crush buckwheat where I am, big woods though. So my old farm was a big wood setting, and they hammered buckwheat because there was no other food. Typically in those big wood settings, I have a lot of videos on this on YouTube. Typically on big wood settings, no matter what you plant, they're gonna hammer it because they're limited on food and they're not used to they don't have all this ag around and clover and or not clover corn and beans and all this stuff, and you don't have open hedgerows and thin woods with small patches of woods where you have all this browse growing. Big wood settings is usually closed canopy. There's no sun hitting the ground, there's no real open fields, there's no ag. So anytime you introduce a food source, you suck in a lot of deer. And if you no matter if you plant buckwheat or brassicas or clover, wheat, rye, whatever it is, majority of the time they're just going to hit it. So there's a huge difference between uh, management per se with a big wood setting and an ag setting. Huge difference. Paul, where are you getting your buckwheat and how much per acre do you plant? Good question. So um, over the years, I've got it buckwheat in various places. If you just want buckwheat, you can order it online. See where I'm at in Maryland here. I can't buy seed local, like bulk seed. So if I have to get like a 50-pound bags of buckwheat or something, I have to either order it online, but then you're paying all your shipping costs. But if I'm in PA, there's a local place there where I can go in and buy 50-pound bags of buckwheat. So, or you can buy it from a farmer, but I don't really recommend that because it's usually full of weed seeds. But um, the amount per acre is about 50 pounds. You can do a little bit more, 75. I wouldn't go more than that, but usually 50 pounds of buckwheat is adequate, and that works really well. Have you heard of this mix of corn, peanut, and other stuff with minerals called buck yum? Used it last year with the drought. It brought them in droves. Had to try something. I think I have seen that. I think I've heard of it or something, but I really don't use a whole lot of that type of stuff. Um, I try to focus on habitat and food plots. Your local landscaping company will sell you bulk seed. Yeah, there's so many places that you can get it from. Like where I'm at in Maryland here, I'm not really in an ag situation, or it's not really a hunting area. So um, there's nowhere around here that sells any type of food plot seed. Uh, if I go to the eastern shore of Maryland, it's still kind of hard to find. Most of the bulk seed, if I have to buy any of that, I get in PA. There's a lot of places in PA that sell bulk seed, but majority of cases now, I'm just getting it uh, from Domain. But there are still situations where, I would buy 50-pound bags of wheat, or 50-pound bags of rye, or 50-pound bags of buckwheat. Those are still, you know, a good choice. Yes, I picked up weeds in bulk seed. I found it cheaper in the long run to buy cleaner, 100%. So 4 years ago, I guess, something like that, there was a farmer in PA that was selling buckwheat and swore up and down it was cleaned and this and that. And no, I my plots were clear. I had the weeds under control. This buckwheat, I mean, I fought weeds after in this buckwheat. I mean, it was ridiculous how much. So it pays to buy clean seed, 100%. That way you're not fighting weeds, you're not buying herbicides and all this stuff. Uh, it's just, yeah, Russian roulette. It is 100%. Buy from a reputable company. There's a company that sells bulk seed in Florida. Um, I can't think of the name of it. I bought seed from there years ago, bulk. Uh, can't think of the name of it, but it's in Florida. Yeah, Hancock seed. Hancock router. Yes, everybody can remember except me. But yes, Hancock seed has bulk seed. But years ago, it was it was cheap. I could buy the bulk seed, and it really wasn't that expensive to have it shipped. But now, I mean, the shipping costs way more than the seed. It's an arm and a leg. So you have to try to either find local or buy from a smaller, uh, I call them specialty, blend seed companies. Uh, but bulk seed, depending what state you're in, you can find it and you can just drive there and pick it up. Other people have to kind of do a little bit more digging. I planted sunflowers as a cover crop. The deer mowed them down in 3 weeks. Yep. So, funny story. The first year I planted sunflowers on my old farm, the deer ate all the leaves off of them, but left the stalks alone. They grew up perfectly fine. The second year I grew sunflowers, they ate them down to the dirt. Couldn't get them to grow. The third year I planted, they grew, but I put them in a mixture. If you just plant straight sunflowers, it's hard. They love them, but if you're able to get them to grow in a mixture, they're very good for soil building and organic matter. Especially if you get them to head out uh, and you turn all that back in the soil. Man, it's really good organic matter. Uh, Martin, we're in mid Wisconsin. Do you think a product like Comeback Kid would be a good option? Mainly talking about alfalfa and if that is a good option in Wisconsin. Alfalfa pH needs to be almost 7. Yeah, so um, that would be a good option, yes. I planted alfalfa in a lower pH situation and it still grew. My new farm, the pH was 6 and it grew fine. But yeah, for optimal results, you got to get to 7. Um, Comeback Kid does work good. If it's your first year planning, then maybe try Hot Chick first, and then put in Comeback Kid into that the following year. Um, but yeah, you should be fine. What else we got here? City sticker, slicker. What up? Fishing time. All right, guys. Well, looks like everybody's answered everybody's questions. So I'm gonna hop off and run home and do some stuff. But come back on, get these folks to watch the podcast and listen up. Yeah. So still, a lot of people don't know we have a podcast. So I started the podcast, I guess, 2 years ago. It's on all your platforms, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, like all the platforms. Chris is on there as well. We record that together. Um, but yeah, we have a podcast. It's called the Whitetail Obsession Podcast. It's on all your platforms. Chris uploads the video version on his channel, and all that. So if you want, subscribe to all that, and we'll keep the podcast coming, keep the videos coming, and we'll get into spring here and summer, and we'll be pumping out videos and food plot videos and all that good stuff. And I'll keep going live with you guys and all that good stuff. So subscribe, follow us, find our podcast, and subscribe if you guys are new. I'll see you guys on the next video.